Hello BookTube, welcome back to my 2026 library tour. This is the penultimate shelf of not only the fiction, poetry, drama section of my library, but of my library tour in general. So let's get started. I'm going to begin with Yuki Tanaka and his poetry collection, Chronicle of Drifting. This collection I've read once, and there's some really good poems in here, but I don't think Tanaka is going to be a particular favorite of mine. I'm not particularly a fan of the Poets Counts to 100 and Bows Out by Ana Enriqueta Terán, translated from the Spanish by Marcel Smith. This is a selected collection of her poetry. It is published by Princeton University Press through the Lockhart, or as part of the Lockhart Library of Poetry and Translation. So, like with most of the more recent or more contemporary editions of the Lockhart Library of Poetry and Translation, the even numbered pages will be in Spanish, and the odd numbered pages will be the English translation. Next is Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. A few months ago, I was on a kick to try to beef up the Victorian representation in my library, and I picked this novel up. I have not gotten around to it yet, and I probably still need to beef up the Victorian representation in my library. Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk, translated from the Polish by... I shall have to hunt the translator down. Antonia Lloyd Jones. So I just recently picked this novel up a few months ago. Haven't gotten around to it yet, but I've been meaning to read Tokarczuk for years now. The Road Home by Rose Tremaine. This won the Women's Prize for Fiction when it was the Orange Prize. And apparently, I think the Women's Prize is a good name. And not having the sponsor, or I'm not entirely sure what. It's the Orange Broadband Prize. Okay. Anyway. So this is a novel about an immigrant from Eastern Europe moving to Britain and his life there. I've been wanting to read something by Rose Tremaine for a while, so I picked this up. It's been about a month or two ago, so I haven't gotten around to it yet. Next, back to poetry with Native Guard by Natasha Trethewey. This won the Pulitzer Prize about 20 years ago and is a really good collection of poetry. I quite like it. Next is a slew of books by David Trinidad, starting with Answer Song. This is an early collection of his work. Trinidad's poetry is very often inspired by pop culture, and they are amazing. I had two of his collections about 20 years ago and loved them, stupidly got rid of them, and have just recently re-added both of them to my collection, as well as a newer collection of poetry. And as luck would have it, I think the earlier copy of this book was also an advanced uncorrected proof. But I love Trinidad's poetry. Plasticville, which I reread last year and loved again. Have not gotten back around to Answer Song yet. Maybe next week. I also recently picked up his newest collection, Playlist, which is amazing. And there is another David Trinidad collection incoming as well. Back to the Victorians with The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. This is his massive satire about a con man trying to con his way into Parliament. I have not had much success with this novel. I have tried it twice over the years and haven't gotten on with it. Maybe another go will give me better success. We shall see. Although I don't think this next Victober will be Dickens versus Trollope. Then again, it might be. Next is Arthurian Romances by Christian Detroit. I'm pretty sure I butchered that name. And this should be translated from the French by William W. Kibler. So this is the French Arthurian Romances, which would go on to influence Le Morte d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory. I've had it for a while and I have not read it yet. I need to find the time to read it. Next is a slim Australian novel, Loaded by Christos Tsiolkas. This is, I think, his debut. And is about a closeted Greek Australian who basically goes about his day in Sydney or Melbourne, or it's Melbourne. So I tried it a few years ago, didn't have success with it, but I'm hoping to come back to it soon. Next is Something About Living by Lina Kalaftufaha. This won the National Book Award for Poetry in 2024. And it's quite good. It's a very good collection. I need to reread it, though, because I haven't reread it yet. Next is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, which I re-added to my collection a few months ago. And I'm looking forward to rereading it, because I read it in college. The Accidental Tourist by Ann Tyler, which I also read in college. And I really would like to revisit it because I'm not entirely sure what I made of the novel when I did read it. The Body of the Soul by Lyudmila Ulitskaya, translated from the Russian by Richard Pevier and Larissa Volokonsky. So this is a collection of short fiction I picked up a few months ago. It is published by Yale University Press as part of the Margello's World Republic of Letters, which is a series of, which is a translation series that Yale University Press does. Have not gotten around to this collection yet because I just recently added it to my library. Sibilance by Sally Van Doren. Is Slim Volume of Poetry. Really good. I quite liked it. Next is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. See if I can find a translator. Okay, I am not finding a translator. Okay. Anyway, so this is a French adventure novel from the 19th century about a group of stranded people who get taken aboard an early submarine by a captain named Nemo. Have not read it yet. It is a great illustrated classic, so I don't quite remember if these are actually abridged or not. It is old, beat up, and an ex-library copy. I also have an old beat up copy of the Aeneid by Virgil, translated from the Latin by Robert Fitzgerald. I read this in class 20 years ago. I took a class on Greek mythology, and the Aeneid was included. And I got rid of that copy because it was a nice paperback edition. And then a few years ago, I picked up this hardcover from Golden's. And they went part of the dust jacket. Sterling Karat Gold by Isabella Weidner. And this won the Goldsmith Prize back in 2021. And is a weird novel. But I have unfinished business with it because I got to like the first chapter. I need to revisit it. And next is Collected Poems, 1948 to 1984 by Derek Walcott. Walcott was a major Caribbean poet who won the Nobel Prize in the early 90s. I have not read this collected collection yet. I have, however, read on several occasions now Walcott's Omeros. This is like a poetic novel, a modern epic that in part moves the story of the Trojan War and the conflict of Achilles and Hector to Walcott's home island of St. Lucia, and as the characters Achille and Hector, who are fighting over the beautiful Helene. This also includes a pair of British expatriates who have retired to the island. The poet himself makes numerous appearances, as well as some historical scenes of battle, and Walcott's father, I think, or grandfather. It's a very complicated work. It's been a few years since I last read it. Probably overdue for a reread, but I really enjoyed this super poem. Next is The End of Everything by Matt Wall. Now, this is a slim volume of poetry. Matt Wall is a booktuber. I've lost touch with him over the years, but he initially focused quite heavily on more adventure fiction, horror fiction, comics, and then gradually moved more towards poetry as the subject of his channel. Although he, as a writer, has written more crime fiction, some horror, and, of course, poetry. Next is Further News of Defeat by Michael X. Wang. This won the Autumn House Fiction Prize several years ago. So a lot of these stories are set in China. And Further News of Defeat, as well as Glossary for the End of Days, were the two works of fiction that I picked up from the University of Chicago Press, who distribute, or at the time distributed Autumn House. I don't think they do anymore. They featured these two short stories in a catalog of, I don't remember if it was like literature specific or like a general 30% off catalog. And this was just in like the back. I don't quite remember. But I kind of would like to revisit this collection because I did not get on to with it particularly well. You Bury the Birds in My Pelvis by Kelly Weber. This is a collection of poetry that I picked up a few years ago as part of a sale from the University of Chicago Press. This is published by Omnidon, which is distributed by the University of Chicago Press. I quite liked it, although of the poetry collections that I picked up with this, this was not my favorite. That will be coming tomorrow. But I do need to revisit it because I've only read it the once. Next is The Duchess of Malfi and Other Plays by John Webster. John Webster was a Renaissance dramatist who was working around the same time as Shakespeare, I think towards the later end of Shakespeare's career. And I read, I think, 2 of these plays for a class, or maybe just the one, and then I read another one on my own. I don't quite remember. But I took a Renaissance literature class, and I'm pretty sure for that we read The Duchess of Malfi. And I think we either also read The White Devil or I read it on my own. I don't quite remember. But I do remember John Webster's work rather fondly, even though I have not read it in like 20 years. Next is The Collected Stories of Eudora Welty. I picked this up recently from Powell's, so I haven't read it yet. And the last book on this shelf is The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton, which I picked up a few years ago. Haven't particularly gotten on with the times that I've tried to read it. I will be giving it another go sometime soon. I'm hoping the problem isn't that whoever previously owned the book, some guy or somebody named Rosito, marked this book all to hell and back. This is why you do not annotate your books, because it makes it hard for future readers to read, because it is distracting, particularly if perhaps you do not know what the hell you're doing. I mean, it's one thing if you're going to keep the books and they will be buried with you, but since that's usually not the case, your annotations are going to torture future readers. So always keep that in mind. Anyway, that is it for the penultimate shelf. I will be back tomorrow with the final shelf of the 2026 library tour. So look forward to that. And until then, BookTube, thank you and have a great rest of your morning.